GT7 1.59 is upon us, so as always it's time to give my initial thoughts on the vehicles, new features, new events, any kind of notable stuff, motor swaps, a brief overview if you will for those who are curious about coming back, maybe you haven't had the chance to play the game yet, or just for us to collectively reminisce about our time on day one of what you think of these new developments, new vehicles, tuning, visual upgrades. And it seems like Polyphony has put a bit more effort into the visual side of things. In more recent packs we've had some more creative kind of visuals for stuff like the Unimog, or this time around the Suzuki Carry. So my thoughts on the cars are mostly positive. For me, the Honda is the exact kind of car which, as I seem to be saying a lot lately, would feel totally fine if it were in the game from day one, but seems very conspicuous as an update vehicle, almost like in a weird kind of way they're just using normal cars to pad out these updates rather than something which the community would want more in general. And yes, I'm aware there's always like two people who really wanted a Honda CR-V in the game, but I'm talking about for the majority of players. For many people, probably the standout will be either the Ferrari 812 Superfast, which of course we already knew was coming back, and the C5 Corvette. I would argue that the Corvette is actually more significant than the Ferrari, because the Ferrari, well, the F12 offers a lot of what this can already do. It's kind of an evolution of a similar idea, and we'll talk about it in a second, but the Corvette, it kind of gives you that whole range now, and it certainly was a fan favourite for many players, especially if you came up playing stuff like Gran Turismo 3 and 4. The C5 was one of the best American sports cars, and certainly one of the best bases for a race car to go with. In the case of the overall cost, well, it's only about 600 grand, or just over. In fact, it's more like 660 grand, or thereabouts. The Ferrari, though, makes up most of that at 550,000. So without that, the Corvette is 65 grand, the Honda is 46 grand, and I believe the Suzuki Carry might be the cheapest car in the game now. If I recall, I think it is, unless maybe there might be some used car that might be a little bit less, but I think it might be because it's 7.5 grand, or 7,600, so a little bit more. And the funny thing is, to me at least, it's the most fun car out of all four of them, not least of which because of those aforementioned visual mods. I really hope this thing gets some motor swaps in future, and this just makes me wish we had something like a Daihatsu Midget even more, because imagine the Midget, either the old school three-wheel version which was last seen in GT4, or the more modern Midget which was last seen in GT6. These are meme cars, but with these kind of visual upgrades, motor swaps, tuning, you could make it into an actual weapon around the track. And of course we'll talk again more about the Suzuki in just a second. One thing I will say about physics changes and that kind of stuff, it could just be me, but it seems like they might have addressed some of the issues with the bouncy suspension based on the ride height of certain vehicles. I haven't, of course, driven all of my cars that had that issue before, but I would be curious to know, for those of you who have maybe used some existing cars or existing builds that you were already having trouble with, has it improved? It seems to me like it has. In terms of new events, well, there's 3, which is a bit odd. You'd think they'd have a 4th one. I do think the Suzuki Carry will probably, like the Jimny, get some kind of event in future, or at very least it wouldn't surprise me, let's say, if it did. In terms of motor swaps, of course, we're going to talk about that tomorrow in its own dedicated video, but there are some very curious, one in particular, curious choice of vehicle there, and a Escudo. Not an Escudo engine, but the actual Escudo itself you can motor swap, which is a strange choice, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. Now though, let's get to the cars. First of all, the Corvette. As I said, it's 65 grand, 384 horses, so not quite as powerful as the later version, 1400 kilos though, so of course, especially by today's standards, it's not too heavy, and this car's over 20 years old at this point, so it's kind of a modern classic really. You can definitely make yourself a nice C5R replica, and you better believe that's going to be in a future special project, because it sure as hell is, and it's actually one of my favourite race cars from the older Gran Turismo games, just a really smooth, pleasant, almost like super touring car kind of experience to it. In terms of driving the Corvette, there's not too much to say that I'm not going to say anyway in its review, which of course will be in a few days time, but the succinct version is, it's just good. There's nothing over the top about it, there's nothing underwhelming about it, it's just a good sports car. It feels like there's nothing there that doesn't really need to be. And even though I've heard some mixed things from people who own these in real life in terms of reliability, well, in the game, thankfully, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Next up, the Ferrari. By far the most expensive car here, as I said, over 500,000 credits. It is in the high 600 point region, 688, with 788 horsepower, and it weighs exactly the same as the F12 at 1525 kilos. So in terms of performance, does it live up to its name? Is it super fast? Well, yeah. I mean, of course it is. It's a 788 horsepower Ferrari, so you'll see it out at Le Mans, flying down the straight. Of course you can take on other supercars and hypercars easily with it, and I haven't done anything literally nothing at all to this car. I haven't even painted it. It's completely standard straight out of the box. Personally, I'm actually more of a fan of front-engine Ferraris than mid-engine. I think I like them more because it kind of forces Ferrari out of their comfort zone, and I like to experience what Ferrari can do when they try something different. It's why the idea of a Ferrari SUV, before we actually saw it, really appealed to me. It's why my favourite Ferrari is the FF. It's just something wildly different to what they would usually do, and to me that shows what kind of skills they actually have when they don't just do that mid-engine supercar or mid-engine sports car kind of approach over and over again. Despite what I said about enjoying front-engine Ferraris, this one's never been one of my favourites of theirs, even in a modern sense, but for those who were looking forward to it, I don't think you'll be disappointed, and I am very keen to fully build it out, some of which I'll probably feature in a review to see just what it is capable of. Next up, the Suzuki Carry. I already touched on some of it in terms of the fun factor. You can tune up the engine a decent amount. Of course, it's not that powerful. 47 horses, 710 kilos, but being so light, so small, and so tunable, you can make it pretty quick. And although we don't know for a fact if it's going to get a motor swap, I really hope that it does. And the thing is, it doesn't even have to be that crazy of an engine. You could put a classic engine into this thing and it would still be more powerful than what it's already got. And one interesting feature is you'll probably, and I mean for this price you could buy 10 and not even notice a difference in your bank account, but depending on whether you have the wide body or not, it totally changes the visuals. And you'll see that here in the video. In the standard form, you can have quite a cute mod of turning it into like a rolling food truck, and of course that's utterly pointless in the game, but it's cute. It's very like Forza Horizon-esque in terms of what you can do in those games. The large rear truck box on the back is also very reminiscent to me of the Unimog, but if you fit the wide body, it totally changes the back end and it turns it into more like a little race truck. And that of course is the version you can see me driving here with that exposed roll cage for that extra structural rigidity, kind of like a mini racing lorry almost. Very cute car, really cool visual upgrades, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to maxing this one out and talking about it again in its own review. And last, and least in my opinion, but it seems to have some crazy fans for some reason in the comments, the Honda CR-V, the 2021 Honda CR-V EHEV EX Black Edition, with one of the dumbest names in the game. It's 46 grand, 381 points, decent spec, nothing too crazy. 181 horses is fine, and it's decently quick. It's not that quick, but you know, for what it is, it's quicker than you would think, and it's not overly heavy. It's 1700 kilos, which, given that it does at least have all-wheel drive, which is nice, it's not bad to drive. I'm actually pretty keen to see what it can do off-road, because it does have some off-road kind of related visuals with the spotlights and stuff. On a stranger note, it's got some very Pikes Peak style visuals going on for it, with not so much the wide arches, but the huge chin splitter on the front, the massive wings sticking out the back. If I didn't know any better, it almost seems like they're trying to drop hints recently with the Hyundai in its Pikes Peak form, thanks to the aero, with the kind of crazy unexpected mods for the, what was it, Toyota, the CHR, which is utterly pointless given how slow that car is. And in the case of this one, the even crazier visuals, almost like a Honda Escudo level machine. It almost seems like they're trying to like give us a clue that Pikes Peak is coming in future or something. I really don't want to give Polyphony that kind of credit though, so it's probably just a complete coincidence with some funny visuals for the sake of it, but it is curious to me how that seems to be happening quite a lot lately, with some very rally-inspired mods for otherwise totally not rally-based vehicles. Of course, there are some new scape variations, which most players probably won't really care about that much. For those who are completely new to the channel, I'd be curious to know if you're maybe out of practice with the game, maybe you've been focusing even on Horizon 5, as to be honest I have been over the past few weeks since its release on the PS5. Will this tempt you back for a little bit? And in terms of what to expect over the next few days, tomorrow of course I'll be doing a members video, as well as the motor swaps list video, which will break down each individual new vehicle, and then in the days to follow over the weekend and into early next week, we'll be looking at each car individually for a more in-depth review, showing you what the car's capable of, and you'll get to see some of those visual mods, etc. in practice. So stick around for all of that, give me your thoughts about the update down below, and I'll see you then. But for now, thanks for watching.